Throughout his papacy, Pope Francis has supported environmental action. In 2015, he published his second encyclical, Laudato Si, in which he called for swift and bold action to tackle the climate crisis.
The Pope's Laudato Si encyclical is now being widely accepted around the world. In this video, we'll look at what this might turn out to be, and what you, as a child of God, can do to survive, and we are starting right now. Revelation 13 verse 3, "And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death." This part of the prophecy was fulfilled when the papacy lost her supremacy in 1798. You may watch the video about that later after this, the link is in the description below. But it doesn't end there, the Bible continues to say, "And his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast." The papacy is in the process of healing. To know when she will be completely healed, the link to that video is in the description as well, you may watch it after this. Now let's look at the latter part of the prophecy where it says, "And all the world wondered after the beast." This points to how the majority of the world's population will embrace the Pope's idea in his encyclical, to designate Sunday as a day of rest for the environment to recover, which is the mark of the beast.
Calling on the world's faithful to join the fight to solve the climate crisis. 40 religious leaders gathered at the Vatican on Monday to add their voice to the growing chorus calling for world leaders to take real action to tackle the crisis. The Catholic Pope, Pope Francis, called the meeting but preferred to let others speak.
I call on all young people, regardless of their religion, to be ready to fight against any action that may damage the environment or increase the climate crisis.
The meeting was labeled Faith and Science, and many spoke of the need to fuse our rational and spiritual sides.
Together, faith and science, people of different faith can transform fear in hope, anxiety in confidence, inaction into action.
Others highlighted the responsibility religion confers on humanity.
That the water is the father, the air is the teacher, and earth is our common mother. Just as we don't dishonor our mother, father, and teacher, why would we dishonor these gifts from our Creator?
We must address the unequal economic systems and the human impacts of climate change.
Though they aren't political leaders, the president of the upcoming UN Environmental Conference says they have an important role.
There is a very unique voice that religious leaders have when they talk to other world leaders, the leaders of governments, and that, I think, is what now needs to happen. For that voice from the religious world, from the scientific world, to be amplified, to tell world leaders they have to act to protect our planet and our people.
Throughout his papacy, Pope Francis has supported environmental action. In 2015, he published his second encyclical, Laudato Si, in which he called for swift and bold action to tackle the climate crisis.
Last week, he virtually attended the Youth for Climate conference in Milan, backing the work of 400 young delegates as they drafted proposals for the UN summit. Meanwhile, outside conferences, a growing protest movement is adding its own pressure. A consensus has been building that real action must come out of the Scotland summit. And to that, we now have the support of the world's leading spiritual figures.
Religious leaders from around the world have issued a joint appeal for international politicians to agree to a new global deal to combat climate change. Christian, Buddhist, Muslim and Jewish leaders were among those attending the gathering at the Vatican hosted by the Pope. For their part, the faith leaders made a commitment to educating and influencing their followers about climate change. The BBC's Mark Lowen is in Rome.
They came from across the planet, faith leaders urging politicians to save it. Christian and Jewish, Buddhist and Muslim, Taoist and Confucian, signing a joint appeal to world leaders who'll meet at the COP26 in Glasgow to commit to net zero emissions, to limit the temperature rise to 1.5 degrees, to support poorer countries. A pope who has focused on environmental concern, and an archbishop with this warning.
Our abuse, our war against the climate affects the poorest among us. reconciliation with creation, in obedience to our Creator, proclaims the love of God. The world has just enough time to get this right.
In return, the signatories say they'll educate their faithful, spreading the message of climate awareness. The document was handed to Alok Sharma, the COP president, to take to next month's summit, telling us the faith leaders are an essential resource.
The message from them has been very clear. This is a critical moment for the world, and the message was one of the head and the heart. The scientists telling us the message from the head is very clear, is that it is humanity that is creating climate change and we need to act now. And the message of the heart is about morality.
The call is urgent. Man-made climate change and fossil fuels have prompted the warmest decade on record, with floods, fires and heat waves. This may be the last chance to halt the damage. Religion and science don't always go hand in hand. Climate change deniers are sometimes fueled by religious conservatives. But with research finding 84% of people around the globe identify with a faith, world leaders know that those meeting here today have a chance of getting their followers to change their behavior.
So, what can we conclude from this? Now that world leaders, religious leaders, scientists, and the majority of the world's population support it, when the National Sunday Law is finally passed, which is the mark of the beast, the minority side, particularly the true Sabbath keepers, will be viewed as the group of people who oppose the solution to the problems that climate change has imposed on our environment. As a result, they will face persecution. All who will not bow to the decree of the national councils and obey the national laws to exalt the Sabbath instituted by the man of sin, to the disregard of God's holy day, will feel, not the oppressive power of popery alone, but of the Protestant world, the image of the beast. Those religious bodies who refuse to hear God's messages of warning will be under strong deception and will unite with the civil power to persecute the saints. The Protestant churches will unite with the papal power in persecuting the commandment-keeping people of God. Last Day Events, page 145. But the good news is, God will never leave His children to suffer forever. Keeping your eyes fixed on Jesus will help you endure. Coming events are in the hands of the Lord. The world is not without a ruler. The program of coming events is in the hands of the Lord. The majesty of heaven has the destiny of nations as well as the concerns of His church in His own charge. Testimonies for the Church, Volume 5, page 753, 1889. These symbolic representations, the fiery serpents in the wilderness, serve a double purpose. From them God's people learn not only that the physical forces of the earth are under the control of the Creator, but also that under His control are the religious movements of the nations. Especially is this true with reference to the enforcement of Sunday observance. 19 Manuscript Releases, page 281, 1902. God has always given men warning of coming judgments. Those who had faith in His message for their time, and who acted out their faith in obedience to His commandments, escaped the judgments that fell upon the disobedient and unbelieving. The word came to Noah, "Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me." Noah obeyed and was saved. The message came to Lot, "Up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city," Genesis 7 verse 1 and 19:14. Lot placed himself under the guardianship of the heavenly messengers and was saved. So, Christ's disciples were given warning of the destruction of Jerusalem. Those who watched for the sign of the coming ruin, and fled from the city, escaped the destruction. So, now we are given warning of Christ's second coming and of the destruction to fall upon the world. Those who heed the warning will be saved. The Desire of Ages, page 634, 1898. The world's and religious leaders are gathering to find solutions to climate change. Watch this video for updates.